Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and what it's going to take, and we're going to talk about what it's going to take to surpass Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is a truly incredible game. Their play engine. It is, an activity that has no peers. Right? It's just an incredible thing. So honestly, I will tell you right now, I think every single day a new tabletop role-playing game is created. I definitely think we've reached a point where there are 365 tabletop role-playing games being created every single year, which means we have one new tabletop role-playing game every year. Now, with the contests that run and with these, like, if you go over to itch.io, it's clear that we're getting a new tabletop role-playing game every single day. Now, what about an honorable mention, right? Like, not just some PDF you threw up on itch.io, but like real, like a published book that you can, somebody took the time and created a real tabletop role playing game with 100, with, I would say, 80. What's a real tabletop role playing game? 80 pages of content, art, an index guide, and an index and a table of contents, right? And a genuine attempt to make all of that good. That's a real one, right? I think we're getting 50 to 100 of those a year now, right? And here's the thing. None of them ever surpass Dungeons & Dragons. They don't surpass Dungeons & Dragons literally by having a bigger market and actually outselling Dungeons & Dragons. That never happens, right? And they certainly don't surpass Dungeons & Dragons from the perspective of quality. It doesn't happen, right? And you can see this in that, and that's why Dungeons & Dragons does not actually compete with any single tabletop role-playing game on the market. It competes with the entire tabletop role-playing game market and defeats it routinely, right? Like, Dungeons & Dragons has no near peers, right? By the way, Tejas Abadia did a fantastic article on that says it in a much more scholarly and academic way than I just said it. All right, so I'm not the only one saying that, right? Like, and that guy wrote a D&D 5e book, right? So like he got the certificates, right? So what is it going to take to surpass Dungeons and Dragons? That's where we're at right now. Why does every single tabletop role-playing game out there fail to ever surpass Dungeons and Dragons? Well, the reality is every single tabletop role-playing game designer doesn't understand what Dungeons and Dragons is. Dungeons and Dragons, in my humble opinion, is a human improvement engine. It is not to be played, it is to be used, right? And the reason why everything fails to surpass it is it doesn't have that incredibly important catalyst that Gary spiked into the heart of it, right? Which is, you have to build something that is going to make every person who engages with it at a deep level better, right? And echo beyond that person, right? Echo even beyond the game into IRL. That's what Gary did, and that's why nothing that's ever created is ever better than Dungeons & Dragons, because in order to beat Dungeons & Dragons, you have to fight Dungeons & Dragons. And the reason no one ever beats Dungeons & Dragons is nobody knows where the arena is. They think it's making a better game, and the reality is it's making a better tool, in my humble opinion. And no tabletop role-playing game designer in the history since 1974, when tabletop role-playing games were birthed, right, has ever attempted to do that, to make a tabletop role-playing game that fundamentally, is a tool to make yourself a better person. Gary's the only one who ever did it. He had to hide it, in my humble opinion, to make it live and to make it grow. Because, come on, like, write a self-help book. 4 people are reading, right? Like, nobody cares. Like, but if you make something that people can engage with and have fun until they realize that this is about improvement, that's where we're at. And that's the reason nothing ever surpasses Dungeons & Dragons, and nothing will ever surpass Dungeons & Dragons until there's a second Gary. Right now, there's only one Gary. But it's possible that some tabletop role-playing game designer will understand the truth about Gary, as I understand it, in my humble opinion, and then will attempt to surpass him, and then she will have a chance. But right now, nobody has a chance at making a better tabletop role-playing game than Gary, because it functions far above the level of a game. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.